You know that feeling when you're trying to speak a new language and someone asks you a deceptively simple question and suddenly your brain just entirely freezes?
Oh, yeah. Total mental gridlock.
Right. You're just standing there maintaining this polite smile, but inside, your mind is executing this frantic, exhausting gymnastics routine.
It really is. You're trying to juggle so many things at once.
Exactly. First, you hear their words, and you scramble to translate them into your native language. Then you formulate your response, translate that back, run a quick, grammar check, and then finally you open your mouth to speak.
And by the time you actually do, the conversation has already moved on. I mean, that process creates a massive cognitive traffic jam.
Yes, a traffic jam.
And honestly, it leaves you feeling absolutely drained. The mental bandwidth required to run those simultaneous translation algorithms in your head is just staggering.
Completely drained. And the most frustrating part is that lag, that inevitable delay where you're stumbling over vocabulary because you're trying to construct the perfect sentence internally before you vocalize it.
Right, you want it to be perfect.
Yeah, and that delay is the ultimate barrier to actually feeling fluent. But today, we are going on a deep dive into a phenomenon known in linguistic circles as the shadowing secret.
Which is, it's such an appropriate name because it essentially operates as a cognitive shortcut.
A shortcut to fluency.
Exactly. Simultaneous interpreters, polyglots, people who speak dozens of languages, they've used variations of this technique for decades to completely bypass that agonizing translation phase. It basically forces the brain into native-like processing.
And our mission today is to unpack the exact neuroscience of why this works. We're going to look at the underlying brain mechanics, specifically how you can execute this method yourself to achieve that fluency.
And we'll definitely dissect the hidden traps, too, because a lot of well-meaning learners crash and burn.
Right, we have to cover the mistakes.
Yeah.
So I want to set the stage right now for you listening. We are not talking about repeating vocabulary words from a textbook here.
No, not at all.
We are talking about physically, structurally rewiring your brain so that you actually start to think in a new language.
And that concept of physical rewiring, that's the crucial distinction we really need to make right away.
Yeah, let's get into that.
To understand why shadowing changes the brain's actual architecture, we have to contrast it with the traditional language education most of us experienced. We're all familiar with the classic listen and repeat drills from high school.
Oh man, the language lab.
Right, where you hear a phrase, the tape pauses, and you recite it back into the silence.
See, when I hear the term shadowing, that is exactly the image that comes to mind. A tape where I listen, hit pause, and repeat what the instructor just said.
Most people think that.
But diving into the sources for this deep dive, it becomes incredibly clear that this technique is actually the total opposite of that.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Because shadowing requires you to listen to spoken language and repeat it almost instantaneously. I mean, just a fraction of a second behind while the speaker is still talking.
Wait, so there's no pause button?
No pause button at all. You are speaking over the audio, creating a real-time vocal echo of the original speaker.
Like a literal echo.
Exactly. And this concept, it was formalized in the early 90s by a Japanese researcher named Katsuhiko Tamai, though it was arguably catapulted into the spotlight by a hyperglot named Alexander Arkwell.
Oh, the accounts of his routine and the sources are fascinating.
Yeah, he was intense.
He didn't just sit at a desk, right? He would take these brisk walks outdoors, maintaining perfect posture, and practically shout in foreign tongues, just shadowing audio in real time.
Yes, and the sources suggest that adding that physical movement, like the brisk walking, actually hyperoxygenates the brain. It engages the motor cortex, which hints at how deeply physical this whole process really is.
The physical component is paramount here. To comprehend what Argüelles was triggering in his brain out on those walks, we have to examine a cognitive model by psychologist Alan Baddeley.
Ah, yes, the phonological loop.
Right. He identified this system within our working memory called the phonological loop. And I found his research on this absolutely captivating.
It's a game changer once you understand it.
So he essentially breaks this loop down into two parts. You've got an inner ear that holds acoustic information for a couple of seconds, and an inner voice that mentally rehearses it to keep it from fading away.
Right, like when you're trying to remember a phone number.
Exactly. Usually we just let incoming sounds sit in that buffer while we analyze them. But shadowing seems to entirely hijack that system.
Hijack is the perfect word for it. Under normal circumstances, your inner ear receives the foreign word, and your brain immediately tries to route it to your native language center for translation.
Which causes that lag we talked about.
Precisely. But when you shadow, you force the inner voice to physically articulate the sound while the inner ear is still receiving new input.
So you're doing both at once.
Yeah, you are hearing, storing, and reproducing complex acoustic data simultaneously. It pushes the phonological loop into absolute overdrive. It leaves literally zero processing power for translation.
Oh, wow. And this is where we start to see actual structural changes in the brain, right?
We do.
The sources highlight this incredible brain imaging study out of Tohoku University. They put participants through rigorous shadowing training and found measurable neural plasticity.
Actual physical growth and reorganization.
Yeah, in a highly specific region, the left cerebellum. Now, we typically associate the cerebellum with physical coordination, like learning to ride a bike or catch a baseball.
Exactly. It's the motor control center.
So seeing language processing mapped to the cerebellum implies that fluency, or at least pronunciation and cadence, is fundamentally a motor skill.
And that is a profound realization for language learners. I mean, the left cerebellum communicates heavily with the primary motor cortex.
So it's basically building muscle memory in your brain.
Yes. By forcing the phonological loop to operate at native speeds, those participants' brains were literally reorganizing themselves to physically orchestrate the complex mouth, tongue, and vocal cord movements required for the new language.
That's wild.
It really proves this isn't just some psychological trick. It is a physiological adaptation. When you rely on the old pause and repeat method, your brain has the luxury of time.
Right, time to overthink.
Exactly. It has time to route the information through your native language centers, apply your native grammar rules, and consciously construct a response.
Which means traditional listen and repeat is basically like looking at a highly detailed map, figuring out your optimal route, and then starting your car. You have the luxury of planning.
That's a great way to put it.
But shadowing is like, it's like being securely tethered to the bumper of a race car going 100 miles an hour.
You're just along for the ride.
Right. You have absolutely no time to check a map or translate the street signs in your head. You are forced to just keep up. And because you have to keep up, your brain has no choice but to abandon its native language safety net.
I love that race car analogy because being tethered to that native speed trains multiple facets of fluency simultaneously.
Like pronunciation, obviously.
Yeah, it trains your pronunciation because your mouth is building that motor map in the cerebellum. But it also trains your prosody.
Prosody, that's like the melody of the language.
Exactly. The innate music, the stress patterns, and the intonation. And more importantly, it trains what linguists call implicit grammar.
Okay, let's expand on that concept of implicit grammar, because it feels like the holy grail of language learning.
It really is what everyone wants.
Instead of memorizing conjugations from a chart, shadowing somehow bypasses that conscious effort. By constantly outputting native-level sentence structures at top speed, your brain starts subconsciously recognizing the patterns.
Because there's no time to logically analyze them.
Right. You don't pause to remember which preposition to use. Your mouth just, it expects to make a certain sound in a certain sequence because it feels physically right.
It builds an intuitive feel for the language, which is much like how you use your native language. I mean, you rarely think about grammar rules when speaking your mother tongue.
Never. I just know when a sentence sounds wrong.
Exactly. You just know when it's structurally incorrect. Shadowing cultivates that exact same instinct in a foreign language.
Okay, so we know that tethering ourselves to this 100-mile-an-hour race car forces the brain to build new motor pathways and develop implicit grammar. But realistically, how is a normal person supposed to execute this?
Well, you can't just jump in blindly.
Right, because if I just turn on a blistering fast foreign news broadcast and try to echo it, I am going to completely crash and burn. It seems like the cognitive overload would just result in total frustration.
And that cognitive overload is exactly why you need a highly structured methodology. You cannot just dive into dense, complex audio and expect the phonological loop to handle it.
That makes sense.
The sources outline a very specific 5-step progression to execute this effectively. It ensures you stretch your neurological limits without, snapping them, and it begins, unsurprisingly, with the input you choose.
Step 1, the material itself. The absolute consensus in the research is that you need a short audio clip. We're talking maybe just 1 to 2 minutes long.
Keep it super brief.
And crucially, you need to already understand at least 80% of the vocabulary in that clip. If you try to shadow audio where every other word is unknown, it's just pure acoustic noise.
The brain's semantic processing completely shuts down.
Yeah, and the phonological loop essentially just rejects the input. So comprehension is the foundation.
It is. Whether it's a podcast excerpt, an audiobook chapter, or a YouTube video, you need a baseline understanding.
Okay, so you have your 1-minute clip.
Right. And step 2 is you don't start speaking immediately. You prime the brain by simply listening.
Just listening. No talking yet.
No talking. You play the clip to grasp the context, notice any unfamiliar vocabulary, and just mentally acclimate to the speaker's natural rhythm and emotional tone.
Which makes logical sense. You need to survey the track before you tether yourself to the race car. But step 3, the transition from merely listening to actively speaking, that seems like a massive leap.
It is a jump for sure.
Trying to generate a real-time vocal echo of native speech, just from hearing it, feels like an impossibly tall order for someone not already nearing fluency.
And that is exactly where the visual cortex comes in to assist the auditory system. The next phase, step 3, is shadowing with the transcript.
Ah, so you have the text in front of you.
Yes, you play the audio and you speak along with the native speaker in real time, but you are reading the text as you do it.
So it's the training wheels phase. By reading along, you offload a significant amount of the cognitive demand.
Exactly.
Your eyes are seeing the word a millisecond before your ears process the sound of it, giving your motor cortex a tiny, crucial head start to prepare the physical articulation.
It's a huge help. You match their speed, you mimic their pitch, and you use the text as a safety net. The visual support prevents that frustrating crash and burn scenario.
That makes it way more approachable.
Yeah, and you stay in this phase repeating the exact same 1-minute clip until the physical act of echoing feels somewhat comfortable. Your tongue will stumble less, and your breathing will align with the speaker's phrasing.
And then?
Once that physical comfort sets in, you move to step 4, you remove the training wheels, you drop the text entirely.
Ears only. Oh man, this is where the actual rewiring we talked about must really hit its peak.
It's the crucible.
Because without the visual crutch of the transcript, you are forcing the phonological loop to carry the entire cognitive load. You're relying entirely on how fast your inner ear can feed acoustic data to your motor cortex.
It is intensely demanding, but it is also where the magic happens. And a critical role emerges in this ears-only phase. You cannot stop.
Wait, what if you mess up?
If you mispronounce a word or if you completely miss a phrase, you do not hit pause and you do not rewind.
You just ride the wave.
Exactly.
Because in a spontaneous, real-world conversation, you don't get a rewind button. If you lose the thread, you have to possess the mental agility to jump right back into the flow of the dialogue.
Shadowing trains that exact resilience. You learn to prioritize the overall rhythm and forward momentum over getting every single syllable perfect.
Okay, so building that conversational momentum is essential. However, relying purely on momentum introduces a massive blind spot, which brings us to step 5.
The most uncomfortable phase.
Yeah, the uncomfortable yet arguably most vital phase of the methodology, self-monitoring. You have to record your own voice while shadowing and then play it back side by side with the original native audio.
It's non-negotiable.
So you have to push back hard on this.
Yeah.
Nobody enjoys the sound of their own recorded voice. It's a universal phenomenon.
Well, I know, it's brutal.
But voluntarily listening to your own voice, awkwardly stumbling, mispronouncing vowels, and butchering the beautiful rhythm of a new language, that sounds like pure psychological torture.
It really does.
Is it genuinely necessary to subject ourselves to that? Can't we just trust our ears in the moment to tell us if we are matching the speaker?
I completely empathize with the reluctance, believe me. But the science of auditory processing is very clear here. You absolutely cannot trust your ears in the moment. It is an auditory illusion.
An illusion because of the cognitive load.
Precisely. When you're engaged in active shadowing, your brain's bandwidth is entirely consumed by the tasks of rapid listening and instantaneous speaking.
So there's nothing left over.
Right. You literally lack the residual processing power to critically evaluate your own output. In your head, you might sound like a native Parisian, but the reality exiting your mouth might be entirely different.
Oh, that's a humbling thought.
Very. Recording yourself is the only objective way to bypass that illusion.
So it's about confronting the gap between intention and execution. When you play the tracks side by side, you aren't listening for broad success, you are hunting for specific discrepancies.
Exactly, you're looking for the errors.
You hear that your intonation dropped when it should have risen, or that your vowel was too flat. or that you paused where the native speaker linked the words together smoothly.
It forces you into active self-correction because without that external feedback loop, you risk cementing bad habits.
Right, you're building muscle memory for the wrong sounds.
Exactly. You could be diligently shadowing every single day, but if you're consistently mispronouncing a foam and never recording yourself to catch it, your cerebellum is just building a highly efficient motor pathway for an error.
Okay, so we face the terror of the recording app. It is a necessary evil.
It really is.
But this leads perfectly into understanding why some highly motivated learners dedicate months to this technique and see absolutely zero improvement in their conversational fluency.
Yeah, they hit a wall.
The sources detail a few critical traps, often referred to as the danger of the parrot, that can completely sabotage the entire process.
Shadowing is a powerful tool, but like any powerful tool, misuse leads to failure. And the most prevalent trap is mindless parroting.
Mindless parroting.
Yeah, which happens when learners completely detach from the meaning of the words they're saying.
This ties right back to why we need to understand 80% of the audio in step 1. If you're just mimicking the phonetic sounds without connecting them to their actual meaning, you are bypassing the brain's semantic processing entirely.
You're just making noise.
I like to think of it as typing out a massive, brilliant novel in a language you don't speak. Your fingers are moving flawlessly, you're hitting all the right keys, and you might even be typing at 90 words a minute.
But you have no idea what it says.
Exactly. Your brain is absorbing absolutely none of the story. You are performing mechanical labor, not acquiring language. You have to actively attach the concept to the muscle movement for the vocabulary to actually stick in your long-term memory.
That typing analogy captures the exact neurological disconnect perfectly. If semantic processing is turned off, you are just an organic tape recorder.
An organic tape recorder, right.
And the second major trap involves the physical muscle memory we discussed earlier, specifically regarding accents.
Right, because if language is heavily reliant on the motor cortex and the cerebellum, we are basically training for a physical sport.
We are. Every specific regional accent requires a unique sequence of physical movements from your jaw, your tongue, and your vocal cords.
Can you give an example?
Sure, let's look at English. If you decide to shadow an American news broadcaster today, you're training your mouth to produce the erotic R. You know, pulling the tongue back heavily for words like car or water.
Oh, and the flap T, right?
Yeah.
Where water sounds more like water.
Exactly. But if tomorrow I decide to shadow a British audiobook narrated by someone from London...
You're confusing your mouth.
Yes. You are demanding completely conflicting physical routines from your motor cortex. The British narrator will drop the R entirely in those positions, and the vowel shapes will require a totally different jaw tension.
That makes total sense.
It's the equivalent of a professional tennis player trying to fundamentally change their serving mechanics every other day. You just confuse the developing motor pathways.
So to build clean, natural-sounding pronunciation, the research strongly advocates picking a single specific regional accent and sticking to it exclusively for your shadowing practice.
Pick a lane and stay in it.
Pick a lane, train the specific muscle movements for that lane, and don't deviate. So assuming we avoid mindless parroting by focusing on meaning, and we stick to a single accent to build consistent muscle memory, well, the logical conclusion for an ambitious learner would be to practice this for hours every day, right?
Ah, and that is the third and perhaps most surprising trap. Overdoing it.
Overdoing it.
It seems counterintuitive in a culture that praises the daily grind, but more is absolutely not better when it comes to shadowing. We have to look at a pivotal 2016 study by a researcher named Hamada.
Yes, the Hamada study.
It investigated the optimal duration for this specific technique.
And the findings fundamentally challenge the idea of marathon study sessions, because the cognitive demand of operating the phonological loop at native speed is so incredibly high, the brain's plasticity window is surprisingly short.
Shockingly short. Hamada's research indicates that the absolute sweet spot for shadowing is merely 10 to 15 minutes per session.
Wait, just 10 to 15 minutes?
Yep, ideally done 3 to 4 times a week.
That's wild.
Yep.
If you push past that 20-minute mark, the brain simply runs out of immediate metabolic resources.
Right. Exactly. You hit a wall of cognitive fatigue.
Your attention fractures, your self-monitoring abilities plummet, your pronunciation gets sloppy, and you are no longer laying down quality neural pathways, you're just exhausting yourself.
High quality, hyper-focused consistency always triumphs over endurance here. You will achieve vastly superior conversational fluency by executing 12 minutes of intense focused shadowing every day rather than suffering through a grueling 2-hour session on Sunday.
Let's synthesize all of this for you listening, because the implications here are incredibly actionable. If you are tired of that mental lag, if you want to stop translating every thought in your head and start speaking fluidly, you have to realize that you cannot think your way out of the translation track.
No, you can't.
You have to physically train your way out of it.
And shadowing offers that pathway. By intentionally hijacking the phonological loop, you deny your brain the time to translate. You force it to process and produce the target language at native speeds.
It's a proven method for physically reorganizing the left cerebellum.
To handle the unique acoustic and motor demands of a new tongue, exactly.
But the execution dictates the outcome. You have to find that 1-minute clip where you comprehend the vast majority of the vocabulary. You listen first to prime the brain. You use the transcript as training wheels to merge visual and motor processing.
And then you bravely drop the text to rely purely on your ears.
Yeah, and you have to face the music and record yourself to shatter the auditory illusion of perfection. And crucially, you have to attach meaning to the sounds, stick rigorously to one accent, and cap your sessions at 15 minutes to avoid cognitive fatigue.
When executed with that level of precision, the research shows learners can experience measurable leaps in both their listening comprehension and their spontaneous speaking fluidity in a matter of weeks.
Which brings us to a very practical challenge for you. We want to encourage you to try a 30-day shadowing sprint. It requires minimal time, but maximum focus.
Just 10 minutes a day?
Find one single minute of audio that you understand today. Pull up the transcript and spend just 10 minutes creating that real-time vocal echo. Do that consistently, apply the neuroscience we unpacked today, and watch how quickly that agonizing mental lag begins to dissolve.
It is a remarkably small daily investment of time for what is essentially a massive cognitive payoff.
It really is the ultimate shortcut. But, before we wrap up, there's one final concept hidden in these sources that I just haven't been able to stop thinking about.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we spent this entire time discussing how shadowing physically alters the brain to accommodate a foreign language.
Right, the neuroplasticity in the cerebellum.
Exactly. But if shadowing physically rewires the left cerebellum to process completely new linguistic sounds, new rhythmic structures, and new speeds, could this newly constructed mental echo chamber eventually bleed over into how you experience your native language?
Oh, wow.
I mean, if you spend months, or perhaps years, intimately mastering the distinct cadence, the breathing patterns, and the emotional prosody of a completely foreign tongue, does that process secretly, permanently alter the fundamental music of your own internal thoughts?
That is a staggering implication. The idea that acquiring a new rhythm physically changes the instrument itself.
Something to ponder while you are riding the wave of your 10 minutes of shadowing today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.